Dr. Charles Carraway. The first question we're going to ask, can you please state your name and your degree?
Charles Carraway. My degree is MFA in painting. That's a Master of Fine Arts.
All right. And Mr. Carraway, can you remember taking research as an undergraduate student?
Yes.
And what was it like?
Well, I have an MFA in painting, which means I'm a studio artist. So I didn't do a lot of written research. I did do written research, but not a lot of it. So I was always in the library constantly researching other artists. And then I was taking field trips to look at artists and look at their work. I was writing just kind of notes and biographies and things of artists. But I was not publishing papers and books and stuff. So I've probably done more of that after I become a professor than I did when I was a student.
So it still is a lot of research that you do with art.
I do. As much as I have time for it, I try to. And I recently presented a paper Sarasota, Florida. From time to time, I present papers, on interest in what I'm doing and things.
Okay. And where did you complete your graduate education?
My MFA is from Rhode Island School of Design, what they call RISD.
Now, did you have to do any research while you were at the Rhode Island School of Design?
I did. For a studio artist, all your painting is kind of what you call research. But I did do written research as well. But it wasn't formal written research like a PhD in psychology or would do a dissertation. It wasn't that type written research.
Okay. Now, can you remember what the topic of your dissertation was?
I was doing interior paintings based on study of painters I was interested in, such as Vermeer and Giorgio Morandi, and lots of artists, contemporary and past painters.
Why were you what made those painters just so interesting to you?
Well, my paintings are kind of spare, empty rooms, and the Vermeer up there is one of my favorites. I like interior spaces, and I like how people interact in those spaces, the way the space kind of defines you and you define the space. It's your space, and the way you give your personality to the space. And what's really bizarre is when there's nobody in the space, but you look at a painting or a photograph of the space, and you have a sense of the presence of the person that has been in the space or is about to be in the space, that kind of thing. A little bit of theater is involved.
Okay. And how important do you think it is for undergraduates to complete a course in research methods?
I think it's critical because any undergraduate student that ever intends to go to graduate school has got to know how to do research. I mean, I'm a painter, and I needed to know how to do research. If I had to know how to do research, anybody would have to know. I mean, if there's any graduate degree that you could get where you wouldn't necessarily have to be really good at knowing how to do research, it would be painting. But I still had to do it.
Exactly. So. Now, do you have any suggestions for any future researchers?
Well, for artists, as I tell my students, to be voracious and just constantly look at a lot of art. I mean, there's a lot of stuff you can find on the internet, but look at art publications, Art News, Art Forum, Art in America, Flash Art. Go to museums, go to exhibitions. anytime you go to any city outside of Jackson, a large city, go to the museums. The National Gallery of Art in Washington is free. You just walk in. Constantly look at art. The library is almost touching Johnson Hall. It's right over here. There's a lot of stuff in the library you're not going to find on the internet. And there's some books in there from the 20s and 30s. There's some old stuff and interesting stuff in there. And there's new stuff that's been recently published. Look at a lot of art. Find something that excites you, you know, and then find out about that person, you know, study them, find out everything you can about them, you know. Because I got fascinated with Vermeer, and I've seen, I think there are 4 Vermeer paintings I haven't actually seen the actual painting. So I've traveled all over the place looking at Vermeer paintings, and I've read everything I can find that people have written about Vermeer, and what they think of Vermeer, and how they think he painted his paintings, that you can agree or disagree with, but you take all this stuff in, you know. You make yourself an authority on your chosen subject. And if you really like what you're researching, then you just do this stuff, you know.
Okay, and how does your art or design students express student activism in their work?
A lot of times they do, not all the time, but we have intro to paintings like a still life. So that's not a great opportunity for activism. But they do independent assignments. And then when we get into advanced painting, they have independent projects where you develop your own style, you come up with your own ideas. And a lot of times there will be things dealing with social activism. I mean, just this semester, one student is doing a series of famous African American entertainers and sports figures. And he's doing portraits of them on about so big, one after the other. And he's also doing a series of kind of unknown African Americans who are actually should be famous but are not as well known in the mass media.
Okay. What art pieces can you think of that imposes student activism?
That imposes student? You mean art in the contemporary world, or? I mean, there are a lot of artists out there that are addressing these issues. You know, I mean, you got Kehinde Wiley, who's probably one of the richest contemporary artists in the world today, and he's doing African Americans posed like Jean-Dominique Anger or Delacroix or Rembrandt in these very photorealistic paintings. And there's a lot of discussion you can have about that, about, you know, what is he saying? What is he trying to get across? And other artists like Carrie James Marshall, a lot of African American artists are doing paintings using imagery from the 20s and 30s and 40s, and they're kind of flipping it around so that you look at it in a different way. I mean, there's just no end to the ways you can mine this past and represent it in the contemporary culture. I mean, it's a lot of stuff in painting going on in that area.
All right. What type of work have you done lately to express social activism? And if not, if given the opportunity, what would you do?
My work probably has just about 0 to nil social activism. And then some people would look at that and say, then that's really subversive because you're playing a game, you're tricking people, making them think that it's just an empty room, but you really got a hidden agenda, which is interesting. It's, you know.
Do you see effective student activism on the campus of Jackson State University?
I do. I just saw it in the student newspaper. There were 500 to 700 people that sit in. Yeah.
All right, Dr. Carraway, we want to thank you for participating in our interview with you today. We are the Freedom Researchers, and I'm Jeremee Sanders.
I'm Nisha Beckton.
Whitney Gibson. Rendrika Henderson.
Dylan Fleming.
Thank you.
Thank you.
We all make mistakes.